Okay. Well, thank you very much all for coming today to our second seminar of our Social Impact Leaders Speaker Series. I'm Maria Vilares. I'm a lecturer in sociology at this university, and I'm part of the Social Impact Lab. And together with my colleagues, Pathak and Charlie Barton, who you have seen outside when you were coming into the venue, we are trying to develop world-class social leadership from the University of Southampton through a wide range of activities. So, for example, through our curricular activities such as the social enterprise module that is open to all students at the university, we try to encourage the students to think about how their work can make an impact. And I can see some of our students here in the room, which is great. But also through extracurricular activities. So, for example, we've got several events that you can see on in the flyers on your table, but also this series. And we are very happy to have today Fuad Mahamed, who's the founder and CEO of Ashley Community Housing, which is a social enterprise based in Bristol, Birmingham, and Wolverhampton. Fuad is a refugee himself. He came to the UK, and since he arrived, he has done very well for himself and his organization, as he's going to tell us. And he has graduated from several executive programs, places such as the Said Business School at the University of Oxford, Cranfield School of Management, Aston Business School. And the interesting thing about his organizations, and he will tell us all about it, is that they have a very innovative approach to the resettlement of refugees in the UK and beyond, with some international also projects going on. So we are really honored to have you, Fuad, and we'll have a conversation with him. He will first present his organization and his personal story for 25 minutes or so. Then we'll have some questions from the Social Impact Lab to him, and then we'll open the floor to questions. So thank you very much, Fuad, for being with us today.
Thank you very much, Maria. I'm really excited and pleased to be in Southampton. I haven't been here for about 4 or 5 years, so it's really good to be back today. I just would like to get a feel of you guys, if you don't mind. So is there anybody here who would think that they are entrepreneurs or would like to be entrepreneurs? How many of you would classify yourselves? It doesn't meant to be a tricky question. If you don't, great. I just would like to. Good. So now I know the usual suspects. So my name is Fuad Mahamed. I am the CEO of Ashley Community Housing. Ashley Community Housing, as Maria have said, is an organization that's based in Bristol, Birmingham, and Wolverhampton. We work with refugees. We give them accommodation, and we give them the training necessary to help them to integrate into society. We have about 60 staff. We have about turnover of £3.5 million. And I want to share with you, ladies and gentlemen, last year we've been voted the best social enterprise in the country. We were up against big charities like Cancer Research, charities of turnover in excess of 50 million, 100 million. So I did not come here to brag about what I do. I came here to tell you 2 things. Why I have done what I have done, starting Ashley Community Housing, and how we do what we do. So now you have a little bit background of what Ashley Community Housing is. In terms of the why, I'll tell you why I have chosen to tell you first the why. A head teacher of a local school in Bristol called me and said there's a class of young GCSE students who want to know about which jobs and what they want to do. Do you want to come and talk to them? So, as you know, school boys and girls are very impatient. They only give you 2 minutes, and if you don't tell them what they want to know in 2 minutes, they'll just give up. So I gave them my usual speech. Oh, this is actually community housing. We save the world, and this is what we do. And then somebody put his hands up and said, Fuad, why do you do what you do? I don't, you know. He was sitting in the back of the class, and it really, made me think, why is it that I have embarked on this journey of starting actually community housing from one house to where it is today? And to understand that, I have to take you back to where I came from, Somalia. Somalia, as you all know, is a country that is have seen the worst parts of humanity. There's been civil war, there's been drought, etc. So before the civil war, I came from a middle-class family. My father has been a professor of a university. My mother has been running her own business. So we had a very good life. And then the war happened. And when the war happened, it has been really a challenging time for my family. I'll give you the definition of a challenging. I came too close to what I would call a starvation. So for 3 times a day, I had food only 1 time. And it was in those days that I have had me sitting with my mom and dad, looking at the disappointment on the face of my mom and on my dad, that have left really marks on me, that I really don't want to see that again. I want to do something. I was under 10 years old, so you have all the dreams that you could be Superman and you could do all these things. So I had all those that I wanted to do really something. So fast forward, we came to Britain, and I came as a refugee with my mom and dad to England. We came to London. When I came to London, I could not speak a single word of English. And believe you me, if you could speak some English in Africa, when you come with the accent and everything, it's completely different. So the earlier days of my life here in UK, first I have to say I'm really grateful. People forget to say this. I'm really grateful for how this country have welcomed me and given me an opportunity to stay here. So, but in settling the early 2 years of my life, it's been quite difficult. The culture and everything is very different. To give you an example, we were staying in Windsor. It's just outside where the Queen has a second house, I think just outside London. And I want to cut my hair, so I went to Tony and Guy. And in Africa, we use scissors. We don't have machines. So I said, can I have a haircut? And he said, what number do you have? What number do you want to cut your hair with? And I said, I have £10. Not understanding the question he was asking me. The culture is completely different. The language is completely different. My mother and my young brothers felt completely isolated. To give you another example, I could not speak English. I went to school. They bought me something they call a special education, which means you're not good as everybody else, which makes you feel less of everybody else, which have effects on you. So I left Somalia with all the challenges, and I came here, not all my problems went away. So it was those days again, then I said to myself, if I get an opportunity one day here in UK, I will set up a social enterprise that will do something about the settlement of refugees and newly arrived communities here in the UK. So that was going on in my head, but part of me also wanted to go to school. So even though I struggled, I did my A-levels, and I was lucky enough to do okay, to get into Bath University to do a degree in engineering. So you could understand that I can't speak very good English. I could not speak very good English, and I struggled to make friends at university, which is very critical for you to survive. So my first semester, I think I failed almost all my exams, and I've done something which I'm not suggesting any of you do. So I found the most clever guy in the class. His name was Mr. Fu Lin. He was from China. He was a very smart guy. So I said, I'm going to be your friend. You're going to teach me everything you know about how to pass these exams. And so I have got some African dance moves, so I can teach you that. So we're going to go out tomorrow during the night. So he said, good, that's a deal. So we had, you know, I 3 years, 4 years at Bath. I've worked hard enough to get a first-class degree, and moved on to work as a management consulting engineer. So when I was at university, I forgot the total, you know, the hardships I went through, and because you speak to people who talk to you about management consulting, investment banking, you know, I was just like any one of you. So I said, why not go for the dream, as they call it? So you watch the movies, you see the American dream, and I was like, okay, let's do that, instead of thinking what I wanted to do. So I forgot about it and started working as a management consulting engineer so I got a job in Bristol, where I have taken my family to live with me. We moved away from London. So I'm going to tell you how the whole actually community housing started. There's a guy who was running a housing company for just one house to help homeless refugees, and he said, Fuad, could you help me volunteer as a voluntary basis, help me with the paperwork and etc. So in my day job, I was doing the engineering, and my night job, I was working with him, And very soon, he decided to quit and said, this is not for me. So I had to make the decision of helping the group that he left behind, and for me to still continue working during the days. Something, ladies and gentlemen, I do not recommend that you do. I've done that 3 years where I've spent all my evenings. At the time, I had no ambition at all of starting this social enterprise. It was just this one house, which became 2 houses, which became 3 houses, just to stick to that. And basically what I was doing was to work with Bristol City Council to house refugees. So as you could see, it is really hard and challenging life just to go to work from 8 to 8 and then come and do that. So at some stage, when I was doing for 3 years, I said to myself, this is what you really want to do. Instead of, as we think about, wait until you get to your later stage in life and then come back into the sociable good things, I said, why don't you do it now? And I've done the most difficult decision of my life, and that was to leave the corporate job I had and completely do this one. I want to share with you that when I said to you what really drove me was to keep my mom and dad happy, that I was in Somalia, yet the decision I was doing was going to make them the most upset they have ever been with me. They have given me education, and here I am saying, I want to leave that behind, work with homeless people, and do this charity which doesn't exist. It was some of the darkest days of my life. So all my friends thought I was crazy. My family thought I was crazy. I thought I was crazy. There's no way you could know what's coming next. You only take, you only believe what your passion and trying to do that. So, so I've left my job to completely focus on what was only 3 houses. 4 houses in Bristol. So I was at the time only caring for 20 people. There was no staff at all. So just me and some people who are working with me, and leave my day job to do this full time. So it's not any easy place to start a social enterprise. And to those of you who want to start a social enterprise, you will need to be prepared to take that kind of journey. So I have left my job, and at the time, the housing benefit system in the UK has been going through quite remarkable change. In essence, we had to quickly leave the status where we were just a non-for-profit social enterprise to become a housing association. I hope you guys are familiar with housing associations. There's a lot of them in Southampton. They have houses of tens of thousands. And to become one, the level of documentation, paperwork, business planning is something that I was not ready for. So again, it was quite, so within 12 months, I had to find people to sit in my board to help me get Ashley Community Housing registered as a housing association. So in summary, that is the journey of I have taken to start the organization, Ashley Community Housing. So what I'd like to share with you very briefly is those early days of Ashley Community Housing, of establishing Ashley Community Housing, some of the things I went through. So if there's any of you who are interested in starting a social enterprise, so finance is a big issue. A supporting network is a big issue when you want to start social enterprise. If understanding the field that you want to work in is a really big issue. But the most important thing is that you need to have a passion. You need to have a drive in what you want to do. For me, it was that I wanted really for other people who are very similar to me, who are refugees, who come to this country, not to feel the same way that I have felt that when I came to this country. So you need to have that driving ambition. Once you have that in its own is not enough. what we have done differently, and we still do differently, and that have made actually community housing so much award-winning, is that we think like business, whereas the majority of the third sector think like third sector, humanitarian, charitable. I'll give you an example. My background is not third sector. I'm not from the third sector. I'm like you. So I left university, then went to the corporate world, and from corporate world went to the social enterprise. Where that is really important is in the third sector. I just had a conversation this afternoon with Maria, where when they are going for finance, how we're different is they always think about grants, and they are always dependent on money that's coming from the local government and the central government. How we think about it is completely different. We give value, we add value to the issues which the government and the local government are struggling with. So for example, so how we operate, I'll give you an example. We are currently working with Starbucks. You all know Starbucks, they sell very good coffees. So in Bristol they have 8 shops, and they are struggling to find staff that can fill in the barista retail side. So they came to us and said, look, we really want to help refugees, first of all, and second of all, we need a staff. Could you, so their CEO said that he wants to hire 10,000 refugees all across the world. So we went down to London and we said, we can help you. Not give us money, not give us charity, not give us, yeah? So we said, we can help you by giving you X amount of staff in your shops in X amount of time, which would cost you X amount of money. So if you do that, we will do the work for you. So we operate exactly the same way with a number of businesses. We're also working currently another big logistics in Bristol called Wincanton Logistics, where we are saying they are looking for staff, where we're saying we can give you this amount of staff, it will take this amount of upskilling and training, and we will help them fill these positions for you. We run currently a big campaign, in fact, which we have pioneered in the UK. The campaign is called Rethinking Refugee. We started in 2015. The reason why we run the campaign is when we talk about refugees, when we talk about, we usually speak, as I said earlier, in the humanitarian context. People who are needy, people who are vulnerable, let's help them. The way actually community housing talks about refugees is that refugees are people like you and me, people who have talents, people who have skills, people who have aspirations. And if we give them the right opportunity, the right training, they can and they will contribute to the economy. That's what we are driving in terms of talking to the businesses. So finding a different way of working, which is focusing the business side rather than purely focusing the humanitarian story, is what really sets us apart. In terms of how we work with refugees, I'm not going to bore you too much with it, but what we have is a model that, again, which we have set out, which focuses on giving the person the accommodation and the training necessary to move them on. We focus on integration, we focus on moving them on. So in conclusion, I want to share it with you a story of a man I've met, the Dadaab refugee camp. Dadaab is the largest refugee camp in the world. So I was doing a fellowship, and as part of my fellowship, I decided to visit Dadaab. It's in Kenya. And while I was walking in Dadaab, I've met this young girl with a big smiling face, and you kind of wonder what's going on. You know, you feel Dadaab. If those of you who haven't seen, it's a very secluded area that you can't go out. It's proper warehousing of humanity, where people are not allowed to go in, go out, and they are given food and things to survive, but it's proper encampment. It's really something that you would not expect is going to happen in the world. So I was feeling really sorry for them in a way, and I've seen this young girl really smiling, and then I said, "What are you doing?" She said, "I'm going to school." I said, "Can I come with you?" So I didn't know a lot of people in Dadaab, so I just wanted to make some friends. So I went with the young girl, and we went to the school. And long and behold, when I get into the school, I see the teacher. The teacher's also got this big smiling face, and I'm thinking, what the hell is wrong with these people? Everybody's happy. You would think that they're not happy, wouldn't you? So I said, hi, how are you doing? Good. So I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm teaching this class and blah, 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 blah. So I just told him my story. I said, look, man, I have been a refugee. I left from Somalia, I went to UK. I work for this kind of organization. This is what I do. Talk to me about, you know, this happiness and this excitement of the work that are you doing? He said to me, Fuad, he said to me something that I will never forget. He said to me, Fuad, I have lost my hope. You know, I can't get out here and I don't do much. What I'm trying to do is to instill hope for the young people that I'm teaching. And it is that hope that we all need to carry with us in the changes that we want to make. That man who hasn't got many resources to do something had amazing hope that he wanted to change the lives of those young people. I think I will stop here. If you have questions and answers, I'll be more than happy to take them. So thank you very much.
So the way we've been running these seminars is that from the Social Impact Lab, we've got a couple of questions, and then we open the floor to the audience, if that's okay. So we tend to ask similar questions to our speakers. And the first one is, what would you say was the most difficult part of your journey, personally and also with Ashley for the organization?
I think the most difficult part has been fighting against myself. So you have a lot of dreams, and you know you lose your way at some stage. You hear people saying that if you do this kind of job, that will make you this important. And I think I really struggled making the decisions I wanted. And if I could, you know, if I could take back the hands of time, I would probably say to myself, you know, don't stress too much. It's going to be okay. So I found generally, even the people that don't trust you will still help you. I found, despite all the challenges and the difficulties I went through, that there was enough help available if I wanted to go look for it. The most difficult thing was to get Fuad out of myself and to become free of all the shackles that I put on and try go out there and explore and make a change. So once you do that, it's really good. And one of the things that really helped me do was going to that kind of place in Dadaab where you see how life is different for other people. We have a lot of things here which we take for granted, and we seem to always create problems which do not exist by saying, you know, I can't do this, or this is difficult. And so in summary, I think the most important thing is trying to live in peace with myself has been the most difficult part.
Thank you. And what would you say are your aspirations for you and the organization for the next years?
What we are currently doing is thinking about systemic change. I left a long time ago, just when I say I left, not left, but we went beyond just giving accommodation. We went beyond just upskilling and helping people to get into work. What we want to do is to change how people think about refugees. So we are running this big campaign, which is Rethinking Refugees, which says, as I said earlier, that we shouldn't just see refugees at best parts as humanitarian and charitable, and at the worst part as terrorists who are coming to bomb us, right? So we should see refugees as people who are just like you and me, people who, given now Brexit, we're losing a lot of staff and a lot of, you know, I'm not saying it's good or bad, don't get me into that conversation, but you know, there will be demand for a lot of workforce, a workforce which we can get from this group of people if we upskill them. So my inspiration would be to change how businesses, not only the communities and the government think about it, but also how businesses think about it. And up to some extent, we are having a lot of success. We're talking to big corporates like IKEA, we've been talking to Starbucks. And when I say we, it's just not actually community housing. I'm working in collaboration with the Refugee Council and other big organizations within the sector. So what we really want is to bring a big systemic change where we see the resources within these people and we see the good in them.
Now that you say that, could you run us through the journey that one of your tenants go through since they arrive to your premises?
Yeah, so typically when a refugee comes to us, they just got their status. So they probably have not had work experience in UK, they probably don't have much of English, they don't have a house. And I don't know whether you know, when they are given a status, they are kicked out from the housing they were staying within 4 weeks. So effectively they have to build everything from national insurance number, job and everything within those weeks, find a house, find friends. So it is quite overwhelming for them, the same as it was overwhelming for me. And that's where we get involved. And then we take them, give them accommodation, and then give them the training, starting with the language, give them some orientation about where they are. If it's Bristol, we tell them about the schools, the hospitals, the NHS and that kind of thing, and then help them further progressing into sector-specific work. So what we do is try to educate them whether they could work in the security sector, in the construction sector. So we are quite successful in terms of the number of people that we put into work.
Okay, thank you. And our last question, although you touched upon this issue before, but we also ask the same questions to our other speakers. What advice would you give to your 20-year-old self, given that most of our students are at that stage of finishing their degrees? Yeah, what would you say
God,
to
you
yourself?
make me feel old now. Yeah, so when I was at university, yeah, so I was just partying and not thinking about what's going to happen after university. I really think it's good to have experience in real life. It's good to go out from your comfort zone and daring to do the unusual things. I think it's really good to take a year out if you can, go visit the world, see the real life outside some of these places. That will put you in a lot of context. A lot of the anxiety, a lot of the fears I had, so would I ever get into BWC? I realized it's not important. It might be important to you, sorry, but I realized that to me it's not important. I wanted to work in London. It was absolutely critical because my friends were in London and I wanted to get together with them. And I ended up working in Bristol and I thought that was the end of my days. And when I started to work in Bristol, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. So putting these things in context is really important. And the biggest decision I have taken about leaving the job, my corporate world, and doing this, and believe me, I'm not saying to any one of you do that, but for me, when I have done that, I felt that my world's going to crash. I felt like that I'm making a big mistake. It turned out to be not true. Today, we impact 3,000 people a year. We offer employment to 70 people. We get into employment. We find jobs for hundreds of people. We give housing into 700 of people. We represent policies. We've done research with you where we say to people, this is the best methods of how you can work with this specific community. We work with corporates in Bristol, in Birmingham, and in London. That's giving me some answers to the question. So in essence, dare to do something different. And to do that, I think it'd be good if you could go outside your comfort zone and visiting some of these places. I think I really find really enriching my soul and everything when I go to places like those, Kenya refugee camp. You don't have to go there, but find that thing that really makes you work and go outside your comfort zone, basically.
Okay, thank you very much. So now we have a bit of time for questions, comments, suggestions. Yes, please.
You can see that this campaign and this particular enterprise is very good from business point of view, but could it influence the government policies?
Yes, that's the intention. what we want to do is to say to the government is saying we don't have money. We don't have enough money to make social change. So social change is this big thing and we can't fund everything. So what we are saying now is, well, there's different way where we can unlock some of the monies with the private sector to bring change to our communities, Southampton, Bristol, and etc. So if the government can help facilitate that conversation with the private sector, at the moment in England that's not happening a lot, where the government's just taken back seat when it comes to the private sector, and we are doing a lot of the talking. And that conversation is really difficult for us. You know, we are making some headway, but there is a long way to go. So yes, the point you make is really important.
Any other question? Sorry, I should have said that we needed a microphone. I completely forgot for the question. Sorry.
So firstly, thank you very much for your presentation. The history is great.
Thank you.
And I would like to ask you kind of two questions. First, if I understood, you're from Somalia, right? And I kind of worked on a project which I did research, and for me it was astonishing. Some of the characteristics of Somali minority in the UK, the history, a lot of things about those people, and how they sometimes quite often feel ignored in the UK. And the conclusion was, and that's only not me, that it's a kind of structural thing, that there's a lot of barriers, that it's not about being from somewhere and not being able to do because not knowing English. That's about perceptions, about opportunities which are blocked for them. So that's the one thing. I don't know if you could touch upon, if you think that my opinion was that refugees, they shouldn't be really called refugees. There are groups of people, ethnicities, nationalities, they've got different histories, they've got different languages, they've got different stories. Each person's got a completely different journey, which probably it's been a few years. It's never been just, crossing the border. It's never been that way. It's never been easy. So looking at the refugee as a person with a very rich story. So that's the one thing. But the other one, also, have you ever got to this point that you felt so frustrated with the fact that you're trying your best, you know that the other people are doing their best to help those people, but some of the doors are completely blocked because of the law, because of something else, because of assumptions, perceptions, and that kind of debate is needed in the UK. Not only debate, but certain solutions to deal with it and to open and unlock a lot of things for people. So, I mean, here I've known stories about people being in a kind of locked in the system for many years. Mm. And they have aspiration, they have motivation, they want to work, and then that's just not possible for them. So that's probably the other story, but just about your opinion about that, I'm sure you know a lot about this.
Thank you very much. A lot of the things that you said resonate with me. With regards to the isolation of the Somali community, it's not only specific to the Somali community, it's all refugee communities. There's a very big research that's done by the government. I think it's done last year. I think the person that did it was called Dame Casey. So the research concluded that in UK cities, we are communities living within communities, that integration we can do a lot better. So what you're saying is a fact. It's not opinion, and the government realizes that there's much more work that needs to be done to help refugees, newly arrived communities, and it's not actually only refugees and newly arrived communities. Even the British community, there are, different communities that are not well integrated into the community or into the economy. So that's a fact, and the work that we're doing at policy level, the work that we're doing at the system change level is exactly targeting that kind of work, where we are saying to the government, every person that we do not integrate is a loss to our economy. And excuse me, I keep coming back to our economy because everything is about, well, the government tends to think more about finance and economy. So we need to be thinking about how we can help these communities get integrated into our community. And one of the best ways to do that is to give people integration into the economy and getting them into jobs. Jobs where, for example, where I'm from, Bristol, there's thousands and thousands of jobs. People who have, so I went to Avonmouth, there's a lot of warehouses and they're saying they need up to 20,000 new staff over the next couple of years. And I asked them, where do you think these 20,000 people will come, given what's going to happen in Brexit? You know, we need to look at the inner city areas of Bristol and the areas of Bristol where there's a lot of young people who we know can fill these jobs, yet have been locked by the system because the government, I shouldn't blame the government, but because we are not seeing them as resource. So when we think of them, we see of them, oh, they're the poor, the vulnerable, they are too much work, we don't want to touch them. Well, ignore at your brill. If you do that, it's going to affect the whole society and the economy. So that's why we have actually won the Best Social Enterprise last year, is because of our perception changing of rethinking refugee. Coming to your second question of have you felt given up, almost every day. Believe me, it's a battle. But what makes it easy, so easy that I want to go on, is to see the impact that we have, the people that we work with. So at system level, I have seen commissioners saying to my face, you know, things that are so racist that if I could record, they would lose their jobs. To people who are saying you're not wanted here, why are you here, and all of these kind of things. But when we make, or when the organization have impact on the people that we work with, it kind of makes you forget all the frustration. I think if it wasn't for that, I would not have lasted this long. No way on the face of earth. I don't do this for money. I don't do this for pride or because, you know, you will get recognition. I do it because I care about what I do. And if you don't see the impact of that caring in how it's helping people move on. So a very quick example, there's this guy who said, I've met him and he said, you know, I'm a black guy, literally, I'm living in Bristol, I can't get a job. And I was like, hang on a minute, why do you think that's the case? He said, well, all my friends are, you know, don't have jobs, either, you know, do this crime or drag, and, you know, I feel like I'm just gonna end up the same as them. So I said, okay, could you just come and volunteer with us? And he came to volunteer with us, and we convinced him to do a security course that we had. So a couple of months later, he came to work with us as a security guard, and then he applied a job. This is within the space of 6 months. He applied a job to work as a security guard. I know it's a market entry job. It's not the most exciting job, but please bear with me. He got a job with Cabot Circus to work as a security guard, where he was earning something like 16K. So after 2 years later, I met him with a woman and a child. He said to me, first meet my wife, this is my child, and I want to tell you, Fuad, that the training and the work you gave me have given me the opportunity to find a job and now to have a family. I don't take income support, I don't contribute to crime or anything like that. I add to the economy by paying tax. So that transformation is what keeps me going, not what they tell me, and I can ignore that. Thank you.
I'm just going to go straight to the point. You mentioned Brexit. What do you think of Brexit, and how is it impacting your job?
You're just going to put me on the spot, bro. That's not right. Sorry, when you're asking me what do I think of Brexit, what do you want me to, generally or?
Generally, yeah. But in the context of social enterprise.
Yeah, good. So I like that bit, in the context of the social enterprise. So for us, the issue that we work with is migration and refugees. And I just quickly want to talk about how migration or even refugees is well misrepresented in Brexit. So in 2015, I don't know whether you guys were aware, you've seen the TVs, you've seen a lot of boats coming to Europe, and you've seen a lot of, and that has been made big deal that refugees are coming to take over Europe. And as a result, that we had to think about blocking them, and we had to think about not letting them into the country. So I just want to share with you, I hope there are some mathematicians here. My background is engineering, so I like numbers. So 2015, we had 60 million people displaced in the world. Of that 60 million, majority of them are what's called internally displaced. They never left their home country. Very few left their home country, and the ones that left their home country, majority went to the neighboring countries. About 1 million and a little bit, of 60 million came to Europe. So you do the maths. All right, so we're in Europe now. Of that 1 million, about 40,000 came to UK. And of that 40,000, we have given status, in other words, accepted their refugee status, 10,000. So where did we come from? 60 million. Where are we? 10,000. That's the perspective. That is the perspective that people don't really see. When we talk about Brexit, we talk about that it's been driven by millions of people who are coming to Europe. So I think it's quite important that we understand the theories behind it. So to conclude, the level of refugees, the number of refugees, percentage of refugees in this country against the whole population is just 0.2%. United Kingdom is a country of about 60 million and odd, so only about 0.2% of that is refugees. So when we talk about there's a crisis in migration, I'd like to know which crisis, where is it happening? It's not happening in Europe, it's not happening in the UK, it's happening, but it's not happening right here. There we go.
As an individual, because you're now with a company, but I'm an ESOL teacher, so I teach English as a second language, and several of my students are refugees, and many, like you say, have skills. So I teach them with a language point of view, but how can I help them, if I can, to enter a job market, be it just work experience, just to get a footing in there?
It depends on the background of the individual. A lot of people have background of entrepreneurship in their home country, so it might well be that they don't need to integrate into the economy, they need to start their own business. Some might well be they have done barbering where they came from and they just want to get into barbering, so it's good to understand the individual and where they came from and what skills they have. If they don't have much skills, what we do in Bristol is it depends on the individual whether they want to do a little bit training and aim for medium interim market jobs, or they want quickly to go into work into what we call market interim jobs like cleaning and etc.
Sorry, what I find is that it's often the employers that are not very receptive, so they will try, but they're not getting very far.
Yes, it is a problem that exists everywhere, and unfortunately there's no bulletproof solution to that, which is why we did a lot of housing, and then we did a lot of training, and then we realized what's the point of producing all these people if they can't find jobs, exactly what you're saying, which is then when we started thinking of the systemic change, the perceptions changing, and we said, well, let's talk to these HR people, let's say to them, I am a refugee too, I can contribute to your work, this is what I know, this is what I can do. See us as a human being, see us a person with CV, see us as a professional, rather than the title, the box you booked me in, a refugee. So we are making some progress, and I think it is kind of having conversation with the other side of the table with the employers and saying, you ought to really consider. You will find eventually some people with some good moral case who would help. But what we really want is to go beyond the moral case and make this a business case where everybody decides that they want to give you a job if you fit for it. Win-win. Yeah.
I've got a couple of questions on how the business operates. I saw on your website that you have an in-house training group, and you also give you also you have companies like Starbucks come along and they provide these jobs which you want to connect up with people who are in your properties.
Sure.
So is it like a sort of in-house career sort of advisors or career service where you're literally bringing in these job adverts, bringing in skills from people, and then sort of connecting that with refugees and staying in how it operates?
Up to some extent, yes. So we have a training arm, as you said, called HIMLA, which means Hope for the Better. And the training arm, we started initially just to focus on the people that are in our accommodation, but it's gone much more bigger than that. We manage contracts worth about £1 million a year, so we actually work with communities, so wider communities. In fact, some of the contracts that we hold go beyond refugee communities, but predominantly they are the refugee communities who are either in Bristol, Birmingham, Wolverhampton, or Sandwell, wherever we have office. So in any given year, as I said earlier, we work with about 3,000 people where we either give them some level of upskilling, some level of advice, or some level of helping them into work, whether we are working with the Starbucks or not. So it's just not confined to our tenants, as they call them, but it also accesses the wider community.
Matching up with those jobs. And do they pay rent when they start getting a job and start getting income?
Yes.
And also, when is it decided the right point for them to move on? When is it sort of deemed that it's ready that they can go out and
Good. You look like you come from Bristol City Council, interrogating me. So it takes about 9 months for somebody, which is really short time, for somebody to come to us with some training, and then we help them move on what we call the private sector, accommodation of their own, rather than staying with us, so they can manage tenancy like we all do. So they have their own house, they can manage their tenancy, and they can pay the bills, they can go to work. So we're trying to prepare them for the real world. Sometimes that's not true because somebody could have, or majority will have, some sort of mental health. So even though we give training, still we have to give them some level of support in settling into the country. So some of them could take a little bit longer. So what could happen is some could find a job and still stay with us, and within a couple of months later then move on. We're talking about human beings. There is no formula that works for everybody. Somebody leaves 6 months, somebody else for 12 months. Somebody could stay with us for 3 years.
And in that time, once they've got a job, is there a rent payment they give towards?
Yes, it is subsidized. Our rent is really expensive, so we are supportive accommodation as such. So just to give you an example, some of our rent costs £150, probably much more expensive than the university. I think £150 per room per week. So that kind of cost is not sustainable if they get into jobs. So we have our own in-house funding where we subsidize during the period where they are in the move on or the transition phase.
It's not like a case-by-case basis if you take someone to
Yes.
hard work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm guessing that the rent is the majority of your costs, particularly in cases like Bristol where houses are very expensive. When the investors are investing in the money for the business, what are they looking for as a return from you?
We only have, when you say investors, we are only getting our first investment now. We never had investment, so we started everything from with no loan, and we never, actually Community Housing have never taken a loan, have never taken any investment. The first investment which we are taking is about to get finalized now. It's in the order of, I think, £1 to £2 million, and we're using it to buy properties. We don't own any property as such, so we lease properties for people who have second homes, and then we use it with a little bit subsidized rent to let it back to the local government. Where the money we make, we use it to pay staff and etc. Does that make sense?
So up until now, you've managed to meet your costs through your rent payments.
Correct.
All right.
Plus the income we get through training and commissioning. So yes, it's been one of the most difficult ethos I've instilled in the company. No loan as such and no investment. Whether it's a good idea or bad idea, whether we could have got to where we got to a lot quicker, I can't tell.
Hi. I've got a question about mental health within the refugee community. As most of them would have been feeling traumatic experiences, how do you manage to support them with all of the government cuts that are happening? Because at the moment, it's difficult to get support if you're a resident here. How are refugees going to get access to it in order to pursue something further after the scheme which you're offering them?
Yeah, good question. So our accommodation is called supportive accommodation in a sense that from day one, we have a support worker that will be assigned for the individual, which they must see once every week, the very least. The way actually community housing works is to enable independency, not dependency. So we work with the people where there are some cases of mental health problems which go beyond our expertise. We work with the local organizations that we refer to, but the ones that are with us, what we are trying to help them from day one is to change the perception they even hold within themselves, is that you are a refugee, that you cannot contribute to this community, that you cannot find a job. No, we say, no, you can. These are the people that have done it. These are the classes, this is the training, these are the things that you need to do. So what we find, and this is really staggering, the government themselves, when we tell them, they find it absolutely amazing, is that once you help people into work, the level of mental health reduces dramatically because of reduction in isolation, more interaction with human beings, and having fun and friends and making community. So there's no easy way of concluding and saying this is how you deal with mental health. Some people, they have big ones, but that's the general formula.
Two more questions.
Thank you very much for your talk. It was really interesting, and I can resonate with some of the stuff you also said. So I had 3 questions, but one of them was just a yes or no answer. Do you deal with families? And if you do, refugee families, what's the dynamics like in comparison to someone who might be coming by themselves? That's one of my questions.
Yeah, good. So we don't deal with many families. Mainly it is single people that we work with. We do deal with a small number of families through this program called the Syrian Resettlement Program, which the government have, I think it started, initiated about 2 years ago. We have a small contract where we're working with a small number of families. They are a little bit more, it will take a little bit longer when there's a family involved because of children going to education and the dynamics. I like that word you use, dynamics. It completely changes. So, for example, the relationship between the husband and wife when they were back home to when they come here changed. And sometimes we into a lot of conflict resolution. But in essence, family integration takes a lot longer than individuals that are coming. So what we do is to still work with the parents with the same process that we do with the single people, which is help them get the accommodation, the primary services, and then give them training. The challenge is there's children at home, and sometimes it's not as easy. But predominantly, they are still equally as successful when it comes to integration.
Thank you. My second question was, as residents, people who have been born here or gained citizenship, who are in a way comfortable, what can we do to help refugees? Not only ones who have come here as in they seek refuge, but how about also the ones that are trying to come? Because I see them refugees in those 2 categories almost, and I wonder how best, as people who are comfortable, we can comfortable to some extent. How can we help them? To what extent? What can we do?
Yeah, I get that question a lot of what can we do. I think one of the most important things that we can do is to help change the perception. I think that bigger picture, you can make a difference to the lives of the people that are close to you in so many ways, whether it's helping with English and etc. Those who are in Southampton, for example. But the real systemic change I want to happen is people to see refugees not as vulnerable, not as burden to society, not only in the charitable and humanitarian context. We want them to be seen as human beings who have talent and skill and inspiration, who can, if we give them training, can go into the workplace. So by changing that perception, we are bringing change to everybody, and we are also bringing change to ourselves.
So changing stereotypes.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. And last one was, are you thinking about opening any other houses across the UK?
I'm exhausted, but you are not, so yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Do you have one last question, maybe?
Thank you so much for your talk. That was really inspiring. I'd like to ask you about your personal journey from like changing the job from corporate to the social enterprise, and then do you see any like connections or benefits getting from the corporate job, like in terms of running the social enterprise?
I think there's a big help. My colleagues in the third sector don't really like the way we think about what we do. They think we are very much business oriented, and they think you talk about too much about money, you shouldn't be talking about money, and you shouldn't be talking about profit and all of these things. So this is the argument I'd like to get involved. So some people would say, why do you want to do that? But in essence, you can't make change if you don't have the resources to make change. To have the resources to make change, you've got to think like business, where the way we hire people, the way we train people, the way we, so as I said, for the 10 years of Ashley Community Housing, we hardly ever went for grant. We did not want to become dependent to foundations. We did not want to become dependent to the specific policies of local government, which can sometimes kill you, you know. The Bristol City Council gives you money, and I'm not saying they are good or bad, but they give you money, they give you parameters where you cannot go beyond. You can't design service that meets to how you want to do. So in summary, I think it's really important. I need to be careful when I say it's really important. I think it will add value if you are from the corporate world, or even if you're not from the corporate world, if you are starting social enterprise, to think like business, to run like business, I think will be what will give you the USB of other charities.
So on that controversial for some, we might leave it here. I should say, I forgot to say before that we are very grateful to the support of the friends and alumni of the University of Southampton who generously contributed to running the series. So thank you very much, Fuad. It's been a pleasure. So he will stay for a few more minutes whilst we have some food and drink. So if you want to talk to him and keep the conversation going, we'll do that. Okay, thank you very much.